Remembering our ancient past and how the fall of Atlantis changed our reality. A little less than 13,000 years ago, something very dramatic happened in the history of our planet that we're going to explore in great detail. Because what happened in the past is now affecting every aspect of our life today. Everything we experience in our daily living, including the particular technologies we use, the wars that erupt, the foods we eat, and even the way we perceive our lives, is the direct result of a certain sequence of events that happened during the end of the Atlantean times. The consequences of these ancient events have entirely changed the way we live and interpret reality. Everything is connected. There is only one reality and one God, but there are many, many ways that the one reality can be interpreted. In fact, the number of ways to interpret the reality are just about infinite. There are certain realities that many people have agreed on, and these realities are called levels of consciousness. For reasons we'll get into, there are specific realities that extremely large numbers of beings are focusing on, which include the one you and I are experiencing right now. At one time, we existed on Earth in a very high level of awareness that was very far beyond anything we can even imagine right now. We hardly have even the capability to imagine where we once were, because who we were then is so out of context with who we are now. Because of the particular events that happened between 16,000 and 13,000 years ago, humanity fell from that very high place through many dimensions and overtones, ever increasing in density, until we reached this particular place, which we call the third dimension on planet Earth, the modern world. When we fell, and it was like a fall, we were in an uncontrolled spiral of consciousness, moving down through the dimensions of consciousness. We were out of control, and it was very much like falling through space. When we arrived here in the third dimension, certain specific changes took place, both physiologically and in the way we functioned in the reality. The most important change was the way we breathed prana, a Hindu word for the life force energy of this universe. Prana is more critical to our survival than air, water, food, or any other substance. And the manner in which we take this energy into our bodies radically affects how we perceive the reality. In Atlantean times, and earlier, the way we breathe prana was directly related to the electromagnetic energy fields that surround our bodies. All the energy forms in our fields are geometric. And the one we will be working with is a star tetrahedron, which consists of two interlocked tetrahedrons. Another way of thinking of it is as a three-dimensional star of David. The apex of the upward-pointing tetrahedron terminates one hand's length above the head, and the apex of the downward-pointing tetrahedron terminates one hand's length below the feet. A connecting tube runs from the upper apex to the lower point through the body's main energy centers. or chakras. This tube for your body has the diameter of the circle you make when you touch your longest finger to your thumb. It looks like a glass fluorescent tube, except it has a crystalline structure at the ends that fit into the two apexes of the star tetrahedron. Before the fall of Atlantis, we used to bring prana simultaneously up and down this tube, and the two prana flows would meet inside one of our chakras. Specifically, how and where the prana meets has always been an important aspect of this ancient science, which today is still being studied throughout the universe. Another major point in the human body is the pineal gland, located almost in the center of the head, which is a huge factor in consciousness. This gland has degenerated from its original size, comparable to a ping pong ball, to its present size, that of a dried pea, because we forgot how to use it a long time ago. And if you don't use it, you lose it. Pranic energy used to flow through the center of the pineal gland. This gland, according to Jacob Lieberman, author of Light, the Medicine of the Future, looks like an eye. And in some respects, it is literally an eyeball. It is round and has an opening on one portion. In that opening is a lens for focusing light. It's hollow and has color receptors inside. Its primary field of view, though this has not been determined scientifically, is upward, towards the heavens. Just as our eyes can look up to 90 degrees to the side from the direction they face, the pineal gland can also look as much as 90 degrees away from its set direction. Just as we cannot look out the back of our heads, the pineal gland cannot look down toward the earth. Held inside the pineal gland, even in its shrunken size, are all the sacred geometries and understandings of exactly how the reality was created. It's all there in every single person. But these understandings are not accessible to us now because we lost our memories during the fall. And without our memories, we started to breathe differently. Instead of taking in prana through the pineal gland and circulating it up and down our central tube, we started breathing it in through the nose and mouth. This caused the prana to bypass the pineal gland, which resulted in our seeing things in a totally different way, through a different interpretation, called good and evil, or polarity consciousness of the one reality. The result of this polarity consciousness has us thinking that we're inside a body looking out, somehow separated from what's out there. This is pure illusion. It feels real, but there is no truth at all to this perception. It's merely the view of reality we have from this fallen state. For example, there's nothing wrong with anything that happens, for God is in control of the creation. But from one point of view, a polarity view, looking at the planet and how it evolves, we should not have fallen down here. In a normal curve of evolution, we should not be here. Something happened to us that was not supposed to happen. We went through a mutation. We had a chromosome breakage, you might say. So the Earth has been on red alert for almost 13,000 years, and many beings and levels of consciousness have been working together to figure out how to get us back onto the path, DNA, where we were before. The effect of this mistaken fall in consciousness and the ensuing efforts to get us back on track is that something really good, something unexpected, something amazing has resulted. Beings from all over the universe who have been trying to help us with our problem have initiated various experiments on us in an effort to assist, some legally and some without license. One particular experiment is resulting in a scenario that no one anywhere had even dreamed would become a reality, except one person in a single culture from a long distant past. The macabre. There's another major factor that we're going to focus on in this story. 13,000 years ago, we were aware of something about ourselves that we've since completely forgotten. The geometric energy fields around our bodies can be turned on in a particular way, which is also connected to our breath. These fields used to spin at close to the speed of light around our bodies, but they slowed down and stopped spinning after the fall. When this field is turned back on and spins, it's called a Merkaba, and its usefulness in this reality is unparalleled. It gives us an expanded awareness of who we are, connects us with higher levels of consciousness, and restores the memory of the infinite possibilities of our being. A healthy, spinning Merkaba is 50 to 60 feet in diameter, proportionate to one's height. The rotation of a spinning Merkaba can be displayed on a computer monitor using the appropriate instruments, and its appearance is identical with the infrared heat envelope of the galaxy. The same basic shape as the traditional flying saucer. The word Merkaba is made up of three smaller words, Mer, Ka, and Ba, which, as we are using them, came from ancient Egyptian. It is seen in other cultures as Merkaba or Merkaba, and Merkava. There are several pronunciations, but generally you pronounce it as if the three syllables are separate, with equal accents on each. Mer refers to a specific kind of light that was understood in Egypt only during the 18th dynasty. It was seen as two counter-rotating fields of light spinning in the same space, which are generated by certain breathing patterns. Ka refers to the individual spirit, and Ba refers to the spirit's interpretation of its particular reality. In our particular reality, Ba is usually defined as the body or physical reality. In other realities where spirits don't have bodies, it refers to their concepts or interpretations of the reality they bring with them. So the Merkaba is a counter-rotating field of light that affects spirit and body simultaneously. It is a vehicle that can take spirit and body, or one's interpretation of reality, from one world or dimension into another. In fact, the Merkaba is much more than this, because it can create reality as well as move through realities. For our purposes here, however, we will focus mainly on its aspect as an interdimensional vehicle. Merkava means chariot in Hebrew. That will help us return to our original higher state of consciousness. Returning to our higher state of consciousness. To be clear, returning to our original state is a natural process that can be easy or difficult according to our belief patterns. However, simply becoming involved with the technical relationships of the Merkaba, such as correcting our breathing patterns or mentally realizing the infinite connections to all patterns of life, for example, is not enough. At least one other factor is even more important than the Merkaba itself, and that is the understanding, realization, and living of divine love. For it is divine love, sometimes referred to as unconditional love, that is the primary factor that allows the Merkaba to become a living field of light. Without divine love, the Merkaba is just a machine, and this machine will have limitations that will never allow the spirit that created it to return home and reach the highest levels of consciousness, the place where there are no levels. We must be experiencing and expressing unconditional love in order to move beyond a certain dimension, and the world is fast heading toward that higher place. We are heading away from the place of separatism, where we see ourselves inside the body looking out. That view will be gone soon, to be replaced with a different view of reality, where we'll have the sense and knowledge of absolute unity with all life. And that sense will grow more and more as we continue to move upward through each level on our journey home. Later, we will explore special ways of opening the heart to kindle compassionate, unconditional love so that you can have a direct experience. If you can just let this happen, you may discover things about yourself that you didn't know before. Dear reader, there are procedures in the workshops that cannot be reproduced on the tapes or in this book because they are totally experiential. They are just as important as the knowledge, for without them the knowledge is worthless. The only way we can give these experiences now is through oral tradition, through a living workshop. But that may change in the future. A higher, inclusive reality. Another component we're going to focus on has many names, but in present-day terms it's usually referred to as the higher self. In the higher self reality, we literally exist in other worlds besides this one. There are so many dimensions and worlds that it almost surpasses human capability to conceive of it. These levels are very specific and mathematical, and the spacing and the wavelengths in and between these levels are identical to the relationships within musical octaves and other aspects of life. But right now, your third dimensional consciousness has probably been severed from your higher aspect, so you're aware only of what's going on here on Earth. This is not the norm for beings existing in a natural unfallen state. The norm is that beings first become aware of several levels at once, like chords in music, until finally, as they grow, they become aware of everything everywhere at once. The following example is unusual, but it demonstrates what is being talked about. I'm in communication with someone right now who is aware of many levels at once. The scientists who are studying her are speechless. They cannot understand how she does what she's doing. She might be sitting in a room, yet she claims to be watching from outer space. NASA checked her out by asking her to see a specific satellite and give specific information that could be known only if someone were actually there. She gave them readings off their instruments, which I'm sure seemed impossible to the scientists. She said she was flying alongside the satellite and simply read them. Her name is Mary Ann Shinfield. She is legally blind, yet she can walk around a room and no one would know that she cannot see. How does she do it? Recently she called me, and while we were talking she asked if I would like to see through her eyes. Of course I said yes. Within a few breaths, my field of vision opened up, and I was looking at or through what looked like a huge television screen. Shock filled my field of vision. What I saw was astounding. It seemed that I was moving very fast through space without a body. I could see the stars. And at that moment, Mary Ann and I, seeing through her eyes, were moving alongside a string of comets. And she was very close to one of them. It was one of the most real out-of-body experiences I have ever had. Around the perimeter of this TV screen, there were about 12 or 14 smaller TV screens, each one giving extremely fast images. One of them, up in the upper right-hand corner, was flashing rapidly moving images such as triangles, light bulbs, circles, wavy lines, trees, squares, etc. It was this screen that told her what was in the immediate space where her body was located. She could see through these seemingly unrelated images. There was another screen in the bottom left-hand corner where she communicated with other extraterrestrial life that was within this solar system. Here's a person who is in a three-dimensional body on Earth, but has full memory and experience of living in other dimensions. This manner of interrupting the reality is unusual. People do not normally see inner TV screens, but we do exist in many other worlds, even though most of us are not aware of it. You presently exist probably on 5 or more levels, though there is a break between this dimension and others. When you connect with your higher self, you mend that break, after which you start becoming aware of the higher levels, and the higher levels start paying more attention to you. Communication begins. This connection to the higher self is probably the most important thing that could happen in your life. More important than understanding any of the information I'll be giving. Connecting with the higher self is more important than learning to activate the Merkaba. Because if you connect yourself to yourself, you will get absolutely clear information on how to proceed step by step through any reality and how to lead yourself back home into the full consciousness of God. When you connect with your higher self, the rest will happen automatically. You will still have to live your life, but everything you do will have great power and wisdom within your actions, thoughts, and emotions. Exactly how to connect with one's higher self is what people, including myself, have been trying to understand. Many people who have somehow made this connection often don't know how it happened. In this course, I'll attempt to explain exactly how to connect with your higher self. I'll do my best. Left and right brain realities. There's one more component to this picture. I'll be spending perhaps half of our time on left brain information like geometries and facts and all kinds of information that to many spiritual people will seem totally unimportant. I'm doing this because when we fell, we divided ourselves into two, really three, but primarily into two main components, which we call male and female. The right brain, which controls the left side of our body, is our feminine component. Though it's truly neither male nor female, this is where our psychic and emotional aspect lives. This component knows that there's only one God, and that oneness is all there is. Though it can't really explain it, it just knows the truth. So there are not a lot of problems with the female component. The problem is on the left side of the brain, the male component, because of the nature of how the male brain is oriented. A mirror image of the female. It has its logical component forward, more dominant, while the female has its logical component toward the back, less dominant. The left brain does not experience oneness when it looks out into the reality. All it sees is division and separation. For that reason, the male aspect of us is having a difficult time right down here on earth. Even our major sacred books, such as the Quran, the Hebrew Bible, and the Christian Bible, have divided everything into opposites. The left brain experiences that there is God, but then there is also the devil. Perhaps not quite as strong as God, but a huge influence. So even God is seen in terms of duality, as one pole of the opposing forces of dark and light. This is not true in all sects of these religions. A few of them see that there is only God. The left brain is able to see the unity running through everything, to know that there is truly one spirit, one force, one consciousness moving through absolutely everything in existence, until it knows that unity beyond any doubt. Then the mind is going to stay separated from itself, from its wholeness, and from the fullness of its potential. Even if there's the slightest doubt at all about unity, the left brain aspect will hold us back, and we can no longer walk on water. Remember, even Thomas walked on water for a short moment when Jesus asked him to, but one little cell in his big toe said, "Wait a minute, I can't do this." And Thomas sank into the cold water of polarity reality. Where are we going with this information? I'm dedicating a lot of our time to showing you beyond any shadow of a doubt that there is only one image in everything. There is one and only one image that created all that exists, and that image is the same image that has formed the electromagnetic field around your body. The same geometries that are in your field can be found around everything, planets and galaxies and atoms and everything else. We will examine this image in great detail